What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the Wednesday show, gang. Happy hump day to all those who celebrate. All you hardworking folks out there midway through the work week, I'm sure looking forward to a good weekend. After 3 o'clock on Wednesday, I feel like that's basically the weekend anyway, right? We're going out for Wednesday happy hour, followed by Thursday who cares day, followed by another happy hour, and then Friday, it's basically the weekend already, right? So, happy weekend, everybody. Little Wednesday slate. We've got a fun one lined up tonight. 7 games on deck. Coors game included. Couple of pitching options, but not the deepest overall pitching slate. A lot of interesting wrinkles to talk about, though. Looks like we got a good crowd in the chat already. Cujo Blues here. Stephen B is here. Matthew Patterson. What's up, everyone? Fun times with MLB and NBA. Yeah, sounds like I've been dropping just one NBA playoff lineup in on some of these slates, but succeeding with it, just with the little baseline projections that I throw up there. And then we had note by DM from our pal M. Briggs in Discord, just saying, hey, the baseline projections have been absolutely crushing it over the last several days. NBA gets screwy the last few weeks of the season. He goes on, and then just wanted to say thank you because I've been in takedown territory almost every night, just optimizing lineups off the top and just dropping in some of the the top projected lineups out of an optimizer and finding some success there with NBA. So pretty solid. NBA projections are up already for tonight. Baseball projections up and fully uploaded for everything that's updated rather for everything that's confirmed so far. Lots still to work with in terms of waiting on some lineups. A couple spots where there'll be some curveballs, including in the Coors game. Not entirely sure what happens there. It looks like we actually just got a couple additional lineups, so that'll be a good place to start. Pablo, yes. Aaron Davis points out Pablo Lopez, disappointment of the night last night. Yeah, for sure. Ended up striking out 6, but only lasted 4 innings, came out of the game. His velo was really down. So I figure that's why they yanked him early. Wasn't pitching efficiently, had walked a few, given up some hits, given up a home run, given up, 3 total runs? I forget what he ended up giving up. But primarily just coming out after 4 innings just takes away any ability to claw back fantasy points via innings pitched. If he had gone 5-6 innings, I feel like we would have had a decent strikeout start anyway to work with, and then you get bonuses and so on and so forth. But was not meant to be for Pablo last night. It was a rough night at the top of the board, honestly. Grayson Rodriguez didn't have a good start. King, I don't think did well in Coors. Not that he was projected at the top, but definitely was a guy that we were talking about, maybe getting some value out of. Well, we're back on it today. Larry C., that sounded like Jerry explaining to Elaine in Florida. It's like half a day. Yeah, that's Tuesday. We're going to the airport. We're already on our way home. Yeah. Larry C. saying that Oakland lineup again. Yeah, Max Fried night. Yeah. I liked the Fried spot last night, but he was second, third on the board? I think third on the board behind Rodriguez. But yeah, dominant start by Max. Another, as some of the pitching sites refer to it, a Maddox under a 9-inning shutout with under 100 pitches. Could be Travis cashed the Gunner home run prop. Yeah, we nailed that one. O's weren't looking good for most of that game, and then kind of came on over the last couple of innings. Gunner got his home run. They weren't the dominant stack of the night. That one went to the Diamondbacks. I think they put up, 14 runs? That was a hell of a spot to be in. But, yeah, the Gunner home run call got through, and some of the other stuff got through. But, yeah, not the best night of baseball by any means. Decent night of basketball. But we're right back at it today. And, again, I think we've got an interesting one to work with today. Let's take a look at the Vegas board to get things started. I just updated this a couple minutes ago. Athletics at the Yankees. Another interesting looking spot for the Yanks going up against Joe Boyle. We'll talk about it in a minute, but you'll see it if you've checked out the top stacks tools or anything for today. You'll see where the Yankees are in terms of their home run expectations. Undercut a little bit compared to where they normally would be. A lot of that is just track record for Joe Boyle. We'll get to it in a little bit, but I still love the spot for the Yanks. They're one of 4 teams projected over the 5-run mark, and actually with the Colorado total coming down by half a run, Colorado's just clinging to being over 5. The Yanks are firmly over 5 at 5.18 implied runs. Athletics on the other side, 3.44 against a pretty decent Clark Schmidt for a good price. I think that's a spot we can get to for both hitting and pitching on the Yankees side. You can probably grab some contrarian Athletics bats as well. Schmidt's no ace, and it is Yankee Stadium. The Marlins against the Braves, 9-run total in that one. Braves heavily favored again. Reynaldo Lopez going for the Braves looks like a decent option for a good pitching play. Braves up at 5.56 implied total going up against Sixto Sanchez in his debut start of the season. He's been pitching out of the pen a little bit, but doesn't look like a great spot for Marlins pitching. I think we're going to get some Braves looking pretty good. Astros at the Cubbies, 7.5 run total there. Close game on the Vegas board. Both teams well under 4, 3.71 for the Astros, 3.88 for the Cubbies. I'm not sure. I kind of like that spot for the Astros against Jamison Tyone. I checked the weather. The wind's blowing in, but not like crazy aggressively, just like a 9-mile-an-hour breeze. I won't even call it wind. So just a low total, and I kind of think we can maybe get away with some Astros. I like the home run marks we're getting. I actually made Jose Altuve off the top the home run pick because I just didn't want to go with the obvious lefties with Kyle Tucker and Jordan Alvarez. All three of those guys have 5 home runs already this season. But Vegas doesn't love that spot. A very low run total in the next game. The White Sox at the Twins. Top pitching spot on the board with a bullet for Joe Ryan. Similar things to what we said for Pablo yesterday, but this White Sox team is just completely awful. I dropped it into the chat yesterday because a couple of guys in Discord were talking about maybe we skip over the White Sox spots for a little while, and Chicago entered yesterday ranked. This is per Underdog's tweet. Chicago entered Tuesday ranked last in the league in average, on-base percentage, OPS, WRC+, home runs, and runs batted in. They played 23 games. They were shut out 8 times, and they had 3 wins going into yesterday. So I'm going to continue to attack them, especially when I've got really good pitchers on my side. And Joe Ryan qualifies for that. Vegas likes it. They're under a 3-run total, 2.74 implied total. This White Sox team continues to be bad. We're going to just throw pitching at it. On the other side, Garrett Crochet. Really interesting spot. Not entirely sure what to make of it, but Vegas likes him. 3.84 implied total. He's been pitching really well, except for a couple hiccups. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. 3 home runs in the last game against the Phillies was one of those hiccups. But a high-end kid against a team that strikes out a ton, I think we can get there. But maybe it would make sense to grab some hedge bats. Blue Jays against the Royals. I like the Blue Jays against Alec Marsh here. They're very cheap for one thing, so I think we're getting great prices on good hitters that we like getting to, preferably when they've been more successful than they've been to start the season. But we like getting to against, mid-level pitching, and I think that's what Alec Marsh is at best. On the Royals side, I think we can also look there. Yadier Rodriguez has had a great 2 starts, but both short starts. Don't know how much he's going to be on the board outside of maybe some DraftKings shares where the 5-inning start would give you, if he gets to 5 this time, would give you a shot at the win bonus. A little thin on FanDuel. I think you can get to the Royals. They're at a 4.05 implied total. Not a bad spot, and it's a team we've succeeded with, and they've been kind of rolling early in the season. So interesting spot there. Mariners and the Rangers. Vegas likes this one with a 9-run total, 4.12 on the Mariners side. On the Texas side, 4.68. I really like Bryce Miller for the Mariners. Don't like the matchup very much going up against Texas. And then John Gray has been kind of oddly successful, but it's another spot. I'm not exactly sure what the depth on John Gray is going to look like tonight. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. Last game of the night takes place at Coors Field. Don't play the pitching. We'll talk about the potential impact of knuckleballs at Coors Field in a little while. 11-run total in that one. It was 11.5 earlier in the day, 2.5 runs higher than any other game. Now it's just 2 runs higher. But the Padres leaps and bounds ahead of everybody for expected runs at 6.12, 5.01 on the other side for the Rockies. Both teams look to be in play. Spoiler for the end of the show. I'm kind of interested in the Rockies against that, what I think is going to be kind of a flat knuckleball. So we'll get there, but it's looking like an interesting slate. Let me grab the last couple of lineups. Aggressive Goose, thank you for pointing that out. Good question. Welcome to the site or to the show. I'm not sure this is your first time or first couple times with us, but don't remember the screen name there. Let me grab an invite. I know these expire quicker than I can keep up with updating them on the site, but I'm dropping one into Discord, into the chat right now. So there's a link to the Discord right into the baseball channel for you. Everybody is welcome. Discord's free. Projections are up on the site, totally free. Pitching projections, hitting projections, top stacks, power index. If you are in need of sim tools and an optimizer, check out our pals over at AceMind, acemind.io. Guys are, whoops, didn't mean to actually click on that. Guys got a great site running, killer tools, optimizer for MLB, NBA for your end of season NBA needs, NFL for next season, PGA is ongoing, MMA I believe is ongoing. MMA is just like events throughout the year, right? I don't think they have a specific like time frame or season, right? Kind of like the WWE. They're just events and then a big pay-per-view and then stuff. Or is it, I guess it's just all big pay-per-views. Anyway. So let's take a look at Pete Crow Armstrong getting called up by the Cubbies. Yeah, that is a high-end prospect. Is he in the lineup? Cody Bellinger on the IL with a fractured rib. That sucks. So that would be why we're getting Pete Crow Armstrong. Bellinger was just starting to turn it on for this season, too. That sucks. But, yeah, PCA, high-end kid. He's actually on my shared team with my buddy Lou and Mike. I'm actually going to tell Louie that real quick. Bear with me. PCA, call up. Whoops, not Gallup. Call up. All right. Okay, so let's talk. I got a couple of these lineups. Let's see if Labs got them yet. They did. Beautiful. All right, we're going to update these real quick. Then we're going to talk about pitching. And then we're going to get into this game-by-game breakdown. Oh, wait. That's the 640 slate. Son of a bitch. All right, they got the A's lineup at least. We'll put that in for the first game, and then we'll worry about the rest later. A's is here. Did they get the White Sox? That one dropped too. Nope. Underdog had the White Sox lineup first and then the A's. But for some reason, Labs didn't pick it up. Whoops. Sheets. Fun part of the show. Talk amongst yourselves. I think I was talking about AceMind, acemind.io, our sim partners. And long story short, if you go over there, you check out their products. First 3 days are always for free from those guys. And then when you decide you like the product, you need the product, use promo code rotoscouts, all caps, gets you 20% off your first month. Helps us out a little bit. And everybody wins. Benintendi. Yep. Young. Kevin Pillar making an appearance. God, this is a bad lineup. And with Corey Lee, I think that's it. That is just an atrocious MLB lineup. Apparently the White Sox are trying to get themselves moved to Memphis. I think it was Memphis. One of those type towns. Phillies aren't on this slate. That's the other slate. There's a 640 slate on DraftKings as well as a 640 turbo. If you're playing that one, Jack Flaherty against the Rays, 8,700. Spencer Turnbull, don't like the stadium in Cincinnati, but I like Turnbull. I think he's pitching really, really well. Obviously, the Reds kind of have a lot in that lineup with Ellie De La Cruz on an insane roll. Kind of like the looks of the Brewers against Josh Fleming. Dodgers are on that slate. That's an easy spot. Although the Nationals on the other side of that one, not uninteresting. 4.2 implied total going up against Landon Knack. Like a C.J. Abrams, Jesse Winker, Joey Gallo, kind of a three-man. Maybe grab one of the righties from in there, like Joey Meneses. Anyway, let's get moving on to important things, like this slate. Sorting by DraftKings projections, we've got, again, big opportunity for Joe Ryan today at the top of the board. Is that what happened to Bellinger? He ran into the wall last night. Yeah, I missed that highlight, but that sucks. The rib's going to keep him out for a while, too. So Ryan, top of the board, biggest price tag on the board, but well worth it. Very high-end pitcher, pitching well, going up against easily the worst team in baseball. Everything we said about this team with Pablo last night, it's the exact same situation and a very high-end talent. We'll talk about him a little bit more in depth when we get to the next spot, but easily the top spot on the board and justifiably the highest priced pitcher. I think you can go there. I'm sure that he'll be popular in this spot. It's one of those spots where the pitcher and the matchup is so good that I just don't really care if he's popular. I think you just get different with bats if you're rostering Joe Ryan, and that becomes easy enough because then you're mixing and matching like at least one cheap guy into that stack probably, or you're using like a cheap one-off in there. So you can get creative very, very easily and just differentiate your lineup that way, and gain a little leverage over the slate by going to a different second stack, or maybe you're using like a 2-2 in the end. A lot of ways to mix things up. So I don't really care about the chalk pitching. Very happy to have Joe Ryan. I don't care about the popularity of the chalk pitching. Clark Schmidt, 8,900 on both sites. A lot of upside. Second highest projection on the board, ahead of Crochet, ahead of Ronaldo Lopez, Bryce Miller as well. He's pitching really well. He's got a great matchup against Oakland. They can be frisky from time to time. It is Yankee Stadium. They do have some power bats on that team. So he's not entirely without a little bit of risk, considering that, maybe on this list he's one of the top-end pitchers because it's not the deepest slate in the world. But like on talent, he's no Joe Ryan, let's say. He's probably not Garrett Crochet or Bryce Miller, but he projects out really well on matchup, and I love the price. Crochet against Minnesota, 9,200. I love the strikeout upside. Kid's been pitching really well in a lot of ways. Couple of hiccups with home runs, couple of hiccups with earned runs, but the xFIP looks great. The strikeouts are there. So I like Crochet. I think he's highly, highly playable. I do think he comes with a little bit of risk, just given that converted reliever had a couple dominant starts out of the gate, might not actually be that guy. Not 100% sold, but he's in the lineup starting for my dynasty team this week in this spot, and I think we can definitely get him for a good DFS start here if all things break our way. Ronaldo Lopez, 10-4 on FanDuel, but only 9,200 on DraftKings. 92 on DraftKings is very interesting. He's playable at 10-4 on FanDuel. Pretty significant upside going up against a fairly low-end Miami lineup. Bryce Miller, difficult spot against Texas. It's really only the matchup that's keeping me away from full-throated endorsement of Bryce Miller. But I'll definitely have some. I like the pitcher a lot. He's been pitching well. It's just a tough matchup, but they're a little bit, there's some exploitable spots. They're not at, with Seager not out of the gate too strong. They're not necessarily at full strength. Langford scuffling a little bit. So maybe we can get there with Miller. I do think he's worth some shots. John Gray against Seattle is really interesting. 75 on FanDuel, 83 on DraftKings. Projects out all right. My question is, what do the innings look like? Because John Gray is typically, he's not the starter who, he's a starter who doesn't typically pitch deep into games, is what I'm trying to say, right? 5 innings, sure. 6th inning, sometimes, if things are going right. But he's not pitched overly deep in his starts so far this year, and he just pitched an inning and 2/3 in relief out of the bullpen, pure bullpen appearance 4 days ago on the 20th. So he's not even really on full rest. Pitched in he completed 6 innings once, went 3 2/3, 3 2/3, 5 innings, 6 innings, and then had that weird bullpen appearance for an inning and 2/3. Faced 5 hitters. He struck out 4 hitters, and it was against the Braves at Atlanta. So it was a really good little appearance. It's also doing weird things and skewing his strikeout rate to not totally sure if it's believable. If it is, John Gray's made some changes. Veteran pitcher with quality over time. I just question the depth that we're going to get. I love the spot for strikeouts against the scuffling, mediocre Seattle team. Just not totally sure. I think the price is low enough that you can roll the dice, but know what you're buying if we go that route. Yadier Rodriguez is kind of the same thing. Minus the just weird bullpen appearance. He's just getting stretched out. So he went 3 and change in his first start, and then went 3 2/3 in his first start, and went 4 complete in the second start. Faced 16 hitters in both, and was really good. Struck out 6 of 16 against the Rockies, and then struck out 7 of 16 against the Padres at San Diego. I like the stuff. I like the upside. I just figure if we're getting him, all right, maybe this time we get 5 innings. And he's got a shot at the win because I like Toronto, like I said before. I don't know that we get there at 7,800 on FanDuel. The price is low enough that you can make it work if he gets the 5, that he gets the win bonus, but misses the quality start, especially if nobody books the quality start, which is really what you're hunting for. But when we've got such an opportunity for Joe Ryan to blow up at the top of the board, we've got a couple other high-end pitchers that are probably going to get at least chase quality starts. It becomes kind of thin on FanDuel. I think on DraftKings for 8,000, it's much more in play. And it looks like a day where, given the choices of cheapo SP2s, I think maybe you just consider that as like an SP2 kind of a price and put them together with another high price starter. And again, just try and get some cheap differentiated bats in there. Spencer Arrighetti, Joe Boyle, Alec Marsh. Between the three of them, it's probably Joe Boyle, unfortunately, at Yankee Stadium for 64, 62. Really only on DraftKings from the bargain bin at 62. A little bit playable given that there are some strikeouts in that Yankees lineup. I would hate to endorse Boyle in any serious sense because of the walk issues. I do think he's got a shot to maybe limit some Yankee home run power, but I don't love the walks. Yankees are really patient most of the time. A lot of hitters that can kind of exploit what he does wrong. And if there's a team on the board that's going to get him, the Yankees in Yankee Stadium might be able to find some power against him too. Arrighetti against the Cubs, I don't like that much. I'm targeting Alec Marsh a little bit, but I think he's got some talent. 8,200 on FanDuel, I don't love. 7,000 on DraftKings. I think he's playable, but doesn't look great. Waldron is a big no. Anthony Molina, by the way, is on the board because I figure he's the most likely bulk reliever. I haven't seen any announcement of a bulk reliever, but I would not play Anthony Molina. And the innings, this is not a real projection. I just had him on the board so that I could switch. I actually didn't realize that he was on this list, but it makes sense that he is now that I think about it. Ty Black is opening for Colorado last I saw. Still kind of unconfirmed in some spots, depending on where you're checking sources, and it's been on and off the Vegas board all day, but this seems to be the word. So Waldron on the San Diego side is a big no at Coors. Jameson Taillon against the Astros, I don't really trust it. The price is okay to roll the dice with it on DraftKings. We do have enough track record with Taillon to know that we'll get an occasional good start out of him. And then Sixto against the Braves, I'm just pretty hard no. Whoops. I didn't realize I shrank that. Come on. So, Athletics at the Yanks. Could be Travis saying, Jays have been talking about moving Jadiel to the bullpen and limiting his innings. Don't know if it happens today, but just wanted to throw the information out there. Yeah, that was the conversation. When he first came up, was he going to get actual starts, or was he going to more work as a long man out of the pen, give him some bulk relief time, and they kind of just dropped him into the rotation for at least these first two outings. But I think, as Larry says, maybe if Manoah comes back or if they add an arm somewhere, that becomes more likely. I think we're okay with it today, though. Limiting the innings, I think that's what they're doing anyway. That's why I'm like shaky if he gets the 5. I think 4 is a pretty much a lock as long as he's pitching well. I think we could get the 5th. That's why I'm pretty sure we're not getting 6. Pinstripe Pimp, lefties are a weakness for Schmidt historically. I believe you, but let me pull up the numbers. It's a good talking point to get us started. Why not? Wasn't looking at his splits anytime recently. Let's see. So far this year, 1 home run to each hand. Striking out lefties at a 37.8% clip, but walking 13.5% of them. That's against 37 lefties. So we're keeping in mind very, very small sample sizes. So far, actually, he's been okay against lefties, 226, 351, 355. Against righties, the 49 righties that he's faced in 11 and a third innings against righties, technically. 356, 388, 511 against them so far. So if you can reverse that, get back to the norm. Let's see what the career looks like. Career, lefties, 296, 378, 484 against him. 15 home runs given up to 512 lefties. 17 home runs given up to 575 righties, but 237, 292, 378, 293 WOBA versus a 371 WOBA given up to lefties. XFIP is 391 against righties, 473 against lefties, striking out 23.8% of righties, 20.3% of lefties with a higher walk rate. And definitely more pop. But overall, so far this year, pitching fairly well. 26.7% strikeout rate. The whip is a little too high. 1.55 whip is high, especially for a 3.15 ERA, 3.38 xFIP. It's partly because the walks are high. Medium amount of premium contact so far, 7.4% barrels, not tragic, but not aggressively good. 40.7% hard hits is high. 89.4 miles an hour of exit velo is borderline high. But Stuff Plus likes his arsenal. He's generated a 12.8% swinging strike rate, which is really encouraging. 32.3% CSW so far. Been a really good strike thrower over those 20 innings in 4 starts. Last year, he worked at a 4.64 ERA, 4.36 xFIP, 21.5% strikeout rate over 32 starts. Reasonably good numbers, but it looks like in the strike throwing department especially, he's taken a bit of a step forward early in the season. If he can maintain that, I like him to find some success going forward. The numbers came against the Astros, the Blue Jays, the Guardians, and the Rays, which is also encouraging for the strikeout totals. If you think about 3 of those teams are very low strikeout teams. The Astros, the Blue Jays, and the Guardians don't strike out that much. He struck out 5 Astros in 5 1/3, 4 Blue Jays in 4 1/3, 7 Guardians in 5 innings, and then he went 5 1/3 against the Rays, struck out 7, allowed just 1 earned run. He's given up just 2 home runs on the season. So he's pitching well. I think he's pitching well enough to be considered relatively safe against this A's team. But we do have some lefties in there to sweat. We do have a powerful Brent Rooker in there to sweat. Zach Geloff has talent. We saw Lawrence Butler hit a cheapo lefty home run in Yankee Stadium yesterday. Lefties in Yankee Stadium are always a thing. Ryan Noda's a hitter that I like. So far this year, he's been pretty awful. 286 on base, just 1 home run, 167, 286, 258, a 72 WRC plus. But he had 16 home runs last year while getting on at a 364 clip and creating runs 23% better than average over 495 plate appearances. For anything getting back to that guy against a pitcher who admittedly does have some issues with lefties, that's a decent starting point for 28-23 at first base. Tyler Nevin out to a 292, 370, 313 start, 114 WRC plus over 54 plate appearances. Playable, he's very cheap. Third base and first base on FanDuel, first base and outfield on DraftKings. JJ Bleday has a homer on the season, a 76 WRC plus. Last year, he hit 10 home runs, but slashed 195, 310, 355, was 8% worse than average creating runs. You know, a moderately talented lefty hitter. No real premium contact to speak of. Not all that interesting. Noda has good premium contact numbers too, in addition to the good on base and the home run total. Last year, 13% barrel rate, 45% hard hit rate. So if I'm lefty hunting in here, I start with Noda. If I can go like Noda, Rooker, Brown, Geloff as a 4-man, or like those 4 guys, and maybe you just try and thread Shea Langoliers and just build down through the whole lineup if you're playing on DraftKings, or just grab the other cheap lefty. But these guys are more skippable than others, but you do like the spot, obviously, in the lineup. We talk about it, or I try to point it out when I remember to. Higher in the lineup, you're probably going to see more plate appearances, equals more opportunity, equals a little bit more upside. So, you know, have to decide for 1,000 more between JJ Bleday and Lawrence Butler. I would argue that plate appearance, or that quarter of a plate appearance you're buying, is probably not worth the 1,000 in salary, but it is part of the argument, is my point. Brent Rooker, terrific contact profile so far this year, terrific contact profile last year, also striking out at a 44.9% clip so far this year, which is up from his 32.7, which was already problematic. Biggest issue with Rooker is not the actual strikeouts, it's just the amount of whiff in his approach at the plate. It's just a lot of holes in his swing. So when you're not getting those home runs, he's not doing a ton else at the plate. But you like the premium contact in Yankee Stadium. If Schmidt gets himself into trouble and there's guys on base, Rooker is certainly a candidate to clear the bases. $2,900 on FanDuel, $4,000 on DraftKings. He's cheap enough to get to. Seth Brown, quality lefty hitter. 1 home run, 1 stolen base so far this year. Kind of a weak start to his season, over 75 plate appearances. Last year, 14 home runs, 3 steals. Year before that, 25 home runs and 11 stolen bases in 555 plate appearances. That was a pretty effective season. So he was in and out of the lineup last year. If he's healthy this year, I like him to have decent games and be somewhat valuable at cheap prices for DFS. In Yankee Stadium for $2,200, $3,100, certainly playable if you're looking at the A's. Zach Geloff, kind of a rough start to the season. Just a 260 on base, a 196 average over 101 plate appearances. But he's got 3 home runs, 4 stolen bases, only creating runs at 79 WRC plus, 21% below average so far this season. But he's got his price down to 4,600, 2,800. Hit 14 homers, stole 14 bases last year. There's quality there. 11.1% barrels and 40.7% hard hits last season. Gelof's a good player. He's just off to a rocky start. But if that's going to push the price down, definitely somebody to keep in mind in that lineup. Maybe you go like 1, 2, 3, 4. I did have him in before. That's right. Those 4 are my key hitters in this lineup if I'm stacking. And then you could get Blade, you could get Butler, you could go for the cheap catcher with Langoliers. Hit his 5th home run of the season last night. 232 ISO. He's a guy that you get cheap home runs out of from time to time, and in a homer-friendly ballpark, could happen. 5.24 in the home run model puts him just in the mix with the other athletics. You can see Joe Boyle's impact on these Yankee home run numbers. And it's weird because Joe Boyle hasn't been all that successful at the major league level. Over 18 2/3 in 4 starts this year. He's got a 20.9% strikeout rate, a 14% walk rate, a 7.23 ERA with a 4.65 xFIP, just 9.3% swinging strikes. He's got an ugly 1.71 whip with all those walks. Last year in 3 starts and 16 innings, 25% strikeout rate, not bad. 8.3% walks is a little high, but a 4.59 xFIP tells the truth about what that 1.69 ERA says. What he's done really, really well, oddly, over both those tiny samples at the major league level and then throughout his entire professional career, and I put it in the article, going all the way back to developmental league, since he signed a professional contract, he's faced 1,168 hitters. He's allowed 17 total home runs. It's just a 1.45% home run rate across that sample. Now we're talking about 16-year-olds in developmental league all the way up through the higher levels of the minors and into the majors. Against MLB hitters, he's faced 146 MLB hitters in the tiny sample that he's put up so far. So out of that 1,168, 146 of them were at the MLB level, 1.37% home run rate. Just 2 home runs to those 146 hitters. Again, if anybody's going to get to him, I like the odds of my Yankees in Yankee Stadium being one of those teams that can certainly get to him. Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton. Rizzo hit a home run last night, so we'll throw him into the mix. There are a lot of good home run hitters on this team. So I'm not saying that the Yankees are off the board for home run power by any means. I'm just saying that that's the one thing that Boyle maybe does kind of well. So it's limiting the output here, but not necessarily here, because like I said before, if anybody's going to exploit these walk rates, some of these Yankees. Tremendous walk rates. They're a very patient team when things are clicking right. They see pitches, they foul balls off. So I think I like their chances to frustrate Joe Boyle here, put up some runs against him, whether or not they're hitting home runs. So Yankee stacks are on the board. If you want to chase some strikeout potential, maybe, Boyle had 6 strikeouts against Detroit in 5 innings, 5 strikeouts against Washington in 5 innings. Only struck out 3 against the Guardians, but the Guardians are pretty good at not striking out. Got pounded by Boston, and he also gave up 7 runs in that game. And got pounded by Boston in his first start for 7 runs, struck out 4 and walked 4 in that one. So not really the best spot to chase, but at 6,200, it's just one of the few guys in the bargain bin today. Like I said before, though, I think it makes sense to kind of double spend a pitcher on DraftKings today. There's not a lot to work with from the value bin. If you're going to Yankees against Joe Boyle, which I do think is a good idea, starting with Anthony Volpe, no problem with it. I mentioned on yesterday's show, starting to show some signs, swinging at some pitches out of the zone, some snap decisions that maybe last week or the week before were not swings, but the numbers are still solid to start the season. Over 100 plate appearances, 287, 367, 402, a 132 WRC plus. Just 2 homers, a 115 ISO, not pounding the ball as hard as he was last year, but he's not just swinging for the fences like he was last year. I'll absolutely take it, especially in the leadoff spot. Give me the on base, exploit the speed. He's got 6 stolen bases, tons of speed, aggressive base runner. So no real issue with starting with Volpe. He's still pretty cheap at 4,800, 3,100 across sites. Soto, come on. One of the best hitters in baseball against Joe Boyle. happy to grab some shares. 6,200, 4,300, appropriately priced. We talked about Judge's rough start. Worst April he's ever had, 180, 315, 348. Just a 169 ISO and 99 WRC+. Does have 3 homers, a stolen base, is still walking at a 15.7% rate. Judge could just get out there and draw 3 walks today and have a successful day as part of the correlated scoring stack, and we know what the upside looks like from an Aaron Judge day. So there's a lot to work with for Judgy there. 11.9% barrels is a dip from his 27.5% from last year. 47.5% hard hits is a dip from 64.2% last year. I really like Aaron Judge's chances to turn things around and get those contact numbers back where they're supposed to be. Stanton, 4,600, 3,000, cheap enough. 5 home runs on the season, a 260 ISO so far. Up and down hitter, very, very streaky. Unreliable, but he smashes the ball when he makes contact and always has. 18% barrels, 50% hard hits on the short sample this season. Just 79 plate appearances. The 5 home runs, that's what we're looking for cheap prices from Stanton. Rizzo for 37, 27. Again, I keep going back and forth about the question marks about the timing. He did homer last night, but we're still looking at 231, 307, 319. Some weird plays at first base. I have questions about Rizzo. Really like the player. Really like the upside. Lefty in Yankee Stadium. There's upside for power there. If he's just getting things going and there aren't any issues with timing and it was just a little downstretch, that would be beautiful. Mamba likes it. Mamba's saying, is Rizzo back? I think he hits 2 today. Woo! Love it. Trey's here. What's up, Trey? Trey finally here at a decent time. Might make a full show. Sounds like work's been busy. Speaking of guys, thoughts on Holiday and should they send him back down? They were getting killed for him not making the roster, and now they're getting crap for not sending him down. Yeah, I think the worst thing you can do with these guys is jerk them around, and you're up, you're down, and we're gonna say that 50 plate appearances or whatever it is now is a total failure. It's nonsense. They brought him up for a reason. He's the best prospect in baseball. Let him play. He'll figure it out, or he won't. I mean, it's as I said yesterday, not everybody finds their footing. I think he had an okay game yesterday, though, didn't he? I think he was on the board. But yeah, not every premium prospect works out and finds their footing, but typically guys with that big a pedigree, especially guys who are, next generation, baseball players. His father was a very good player. So there's a lot to believe in with Jackson Holiday. I think he's going to be perfectly fine. I think you just leave him in. It's not like he's really harming the team. They're doing just fine with him struggling. So I think it's a spot where you just let it come up. Yoga Chaveri, what's going on, buddy? I need the Bat Whisperer to help me get back in the MLB DFS swing. Let's figure it out. Yanks used to do that a ton, bring them up and then send them down. Yeah, it's, they had a lot of guys that were like Florial, like I say with him all the time, like talented guys blocked by positions with big free agents, and whether or not they're guys that work out, sometimes it was just an old veteran blocking guys. I love Brett Gardner, but he was here probably a couple years too long at the end, where a guy like some of those young players could have maybe helped out. But with the Yanks, a lot of the time it's just kind of contract blocking, and then they'll either perform or underperform, but when the veteran comes back from the IL or whatever, they go back down. Right now, it doesn't look like Oswaldo Cabrera is going to have to worry about that kind of a situation, though, from the bottom of the lineup. For one, he's been playing pretty well. He's down to 278, 312, 458, but still a 124 WRC plus. He's hit 3 kind of unexpected home runs in 77 plate appearances. I continue to say that he is not necessarily that even that good of a hitter. He's overperformed so far, but he's going to have that job for a while because DJ LeMahieu came up limping again with the bad foot. So funny tweet was going around yesterday that Yanks expecting DJ LeMahieu back in June with a prosthetic foot, which might be the answer at this point. Foot injuries are no joke for athletes, unfortunately. Austin Wells, 3,000, 2,400. Hasn't done anything yet this season, but a left-handed catcher with a little bit of pop. Always going to be interesting enough in Yankee Stadium where you're required to roster catchers. So if you're stacking Yankees, maybe you build them into just a couple of your Yankee stacks. But you're talking about a 9th hitter. We've got some interesting catcher spots if you're looking at one-off catchers. So probably not your prime catcher one-off. So Schmidt's a yes. Yankee stacks are a yes. Athletic stacks, I do think you can get away with as a value stack. I mean, you can see all the extremely cheap pricing. Nobody even 3,000. What's the highest price? 2,900 for Rooker, 2,800 for Geloff on FanDuel are the 2 highest prices on the team, and then everybody else way cheap. And then on DraftKings, 46 for Geloff is the highest price, followed by 4,000 for Rooker. It's a very, very cheap team. They're cheap for a reason. They suck. They're the Athletics. But especially in Yankee Stadium, a little bit of potential. It was starting to drizzle here earlier, but it's a nice warm 70-something degree day. Looks like the sun is back out. No issues with it. I think we're good across the board on weather, by the way. Let's move on from here. Oh, and so Joe Boyle, maybe only as a stretch, extreme low faith dart throw on DraftKings for the bargain bin price, but there's no real appeal there. Marlins. See if we got the lineup in. We do. Grab the Marlins lineup here real quick. And we'll get talking about these guys. It's probably close to this. Whoops. I should actually put in the official confirm one. Arias, De La Cruz, Chisholm, Bell, Sanchez, Timmy, Gordon. Vidal Brujan getting in the lineup. And Christian Bethancourt. All right. So let's start with Sixto. I'm not really seeing it. 7,000 on DraftKings. Maybe if he was like 4,000. 6,300 on FanDuel. Doesn't really have a projection to support any kind of quality. He's thrown 7 1/3 in relief so far this year. 8.8% strikeout rate, 8.8% walk rate. It's obviously a very tiny sample. 6.14 ERA, a 6.04 xFIP, generating just a 4.5% swinging strike rate so far, a 20.9% CSW, and we're going to grab him and throw him against the Atlanta Braves? That doesn't sound right. I am entirely 100%. I would just take Sixto Sanchez out of the player pool. I really don't think there's any need to go there. Once upon a time was a highly regarded guy. Last relevant chunk was 2019. He made 18 starts in Double-A through 103 innings. In 2020, he threw 39 innings in the show, 7 starts. An inning in Double-A last year, and then 7 1/3 in the show this year. I just don't see much here. Maybe at a different time during the year if he succeeds and continues forward and we get him against a weak opponent, but just doesn't make sense. Braves look like a clear-cut, obvious stack. We've got 3 hitters above the magic number, including Ronald Acuna, Austin Riley, and Matty Olson. Marcelo Zuna, by all rights, probably should be above the magic number here. When the home run model catches up with his continued success from this year, I would imagine would have elevated this up above. So consider Ozuna above the magic number today as well. He's got 9 home runs in 97 plate appearances so far this year. 349 ISO in the 349 ISO so far. That's after hitting 40 home runs for this team last year. Ozuna's star caliber. He's up to 4,400, one of the highest priced players on the entire FanDuel slate. Still pretty reasonably priced at 55 on DraftKings. You also get Olson under 6,000, Riley at 58. Perfectly happy to pay 65 for Acuna, 45 on FanDuel. He's only got 1 home run, but he's still creating runs 29% better than average. Getting on at a 408 clip. He's got 10 stolen bases in 103 plate appearances, and the power's coming. He'll be perfectly fine. I'm not concerned about it in the slightest. A little bit off in terms of the premium contact so far. That's the culprit. More strikeouts so far. Part of the issue. That's going to round into form. Maybe he doesn't hit the 41 that he hit last year, but he's on track for the stolen base total, and call it, if it's an 80-30 season, that's just as good. Michael Harris, 4,600, 3,200. Love him in that spot in the lineup. Helps you bring down the prices of the surrounding stars. He's star caliber talent himself. 3 home runs, 5 stolen bases, creating runs 30% better than average so far this year. 45.8% hard hit rate. 315, 351, 478. You're just getting a really good player at a cheap price in amongst those stars. So love it when he's up there. Riley and Olsen fill the corners with the two best power hitters at corner infield positions in the league. Right now, they're sitting at just 2 and 3 home runs, 5 combined or half in Ozuna. But I think we'll be fine with those two hitters. 111 WRC plus and a 105 WRC plus anyway, despite the lack of power. Orlando Arcia, 1 home run on the season, but 317, 348, 463, creating runs 23% better than average. An underplayed, underpriced shortstop, 2,900 on FanDuel, 4,200 on DraftKings, hitting 6th today. Looks like a killer spot if you're stacking Braves. Jared Kelenic, 319, 396, 383 to start his season. Not hitting for power yet. 6.7% barrels, 43.3% hard hits, but no homers, just a .064 ISO. But 123 WRC plus, that's a successful 53 plate appearances for Kelenic. We just want to see him continue doing stuff like that, and maybe he develops. So the power hopefully will come along with everything else. That should be the easy part for him, is the power. Let's focus on the triple slash staying good, the run creation staying good. Chadwick Tromp in for d'Arnaud today, so losing d'Arnaud out of this lineup kind of sucks. And then Luis Guillorme, it does shorten the Braves lineup a little bit, but it's still a pretty solid 7 options with 5 ridiculous options. So I think we're definitely stacking Braves against Sixto, and then I think we're definitely throwing Ronaldo back against the Marlins. Love him at the price on DraftKings, 9,200. He's made 3 starts, thrown 18 innings. Very solid results so far. Exactly 6 innings in each of the 3 starts. Booked the quality start in each of the 3 starts. Didn't get the win in the first game, oddly, against the White Sox. That was the only game in which he's allowed an earned run so far this season. Gave up 1 earned run on 4 hits in that one. Struck out 5 and walked 2 over 6 innings. Next game, he faced the Mets. 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, 3 walks, 3 hits, no runs. After that, at Houston. And I was looking to target him in both of those games. So this will be the game that he screws up and gets pounded by the Marlins. But I was throwing Mets at him. I was throwing Astros at him. Now I'm just going to be on his side. Against the Astros, 6 innings, 4 hits allowed, no runs, walked 1, struck out 7. He's been good. Going up against the Fish here looks like a pretty good spot. 26.5% strikeout rate is what that amounts to. You can see the .50 ERA based on allowing 1 run in those 3 starts. 3.84 xFIP is probably the more honest, the round where we'll settle in over the course of the season. Just a 9.9% swinging strike rate and 25.4% CSW. Walking a few too many, but the whip is terrific. He hasn't been dinged for hits, hasn't given up a home run yet. Stuff Plus doesn't love the arsenal, but he's making it work, and he's in a pretty good matchup against a soft team. So I think we get there with Ronaldo. I don't love it at 10-4 on FanDuel. There's options I like better. But at 92 on DraftKings, he's definitely in that mix, especially if we're looking to double up on, pricier starters. Like getting him with one of these 2 guys looks kind of strong to me. Or even putting those 2 guys together just makes it work a little bit better than if you're going all the way to the top of the board with Joe Ryan, who is easily my favorite starter on the slate. If you went with Ryan, it's a little more difficult to combine him with any of those guys. I don't necessarily want Crochet on the other side of that game with him on a deep enough slate. It might be Gray. Maybe Ryan Gray or Ryan Yadiel is kind of interesting. You just need that 5th inning and that win bonus from Yadiel. But I do think we're looking at those kind of combinations because, again, I don't love Boyle in this spot. No real faith in these other guys. So, yeah, that puts Ronaldo on the board here. And then for the Fish, really not that much to work with. I do think Jazz Chisholm is a very good player. 5,100, 3,000. He's just sitting at 247, 330, 371, 97 WRC plus after 100 plate appearances. Not great. 5 home runs on the board for Brian De La Cruz. 1 stolen base so far, a 184 ISO, 1% below average for him. Notably, nobody in this starting lineup has a positive WRC plus for the season. It's problematic. Average WRC plus is sitting at 52 across the 9-man lineup, but these guys, good enough, essentially at league average for Arias, De La Cruz, and Chisholm. That's where you start, and then probably the easiest guy to bolt in there is either Josh Bell or Jesus Sanchez. Get a little bit of power from the left side of the plate. Bell, 3 home runs on the season. Pretty bad start to the year otherwise. Sanchez, just 1 home run on the season. He's stolen 4 bases, a little bit of lefty power. Timmy Anderson, not off to a great start. 241, 277, 266 out of playing himself out of Chicago. And that's the Chicago White Sox, not the Cubs. A team notably short on major league talent. Just said, no thanks, Tim Anderson. Take your former skills of hitting 300 and being a really good player and go to Miami. See if you can find a job. It seems like that was the right decision for the White Sox, which is ugly for Tim Anderson. 3,500, 2,400, not really going there. Nick Gordon has 3 home runs, but not much else so far this season. A 220 ISO is nice, but not really a great premium contact profile. Strikes out at a 24.1% clip. Not really a buyer on Nick Gordon. Vidal Brujan, Christian Bethancourt at the bottom of the lineup. No, thank you. So, really weak opponent for Ronaldo. Looks like a pretty good spot for him. Lopez, Braves bats. Big yeses for both. No Sixto. And Marlins really only as a limited, throw it in there in 2 or 3 out of 150 if you want to. Or if you just maybe want to hedge a big Ronaldo position. But low priority. Joker's here. Good boy. Why don't you go lie down? You pinhead. Did I say the word food there by accident? Yeah, absolutely. Pinstripe. I don't think we're seeing much depth at all out of Sixto, even if he starts out well. I think we're getting into that bullpen. I do not think that we're there. Larry C. watched Paul Skeens today. Yeah, Skeens over. I just sent the Underdog sent this one as well. 17 innings, 34 strikeouts, 0.53 ERA, 0.88 WHIP in 17 innings at AAA. 51.5% strikeout rate is the highest for a AAA starter aged 22 or younger since minor league baseball stats began being tracked in 2006. So that's pretty good. Paul Skeens is a member of the Dynasty team. But, Pirates going to rocket up the board with him and Jared Jones in that rotation once that happens, as long as they can both stay healthy. Kind of nervous about Skeens, though. If you look at his delivery, he is one of those guys that cocks the arm back like this rather than like this. And as we talked about a couple weeks ago, I guess, at this point on the show, that is one of the potential indicators for elbow issues further down the line. So I'd like to see them work on that, if nothing. But, that sucks. Yeah, B-Funk, we caught that earlier. Larry mentioned it, and they're bringing up let's fit Crow Armstrong. Let's see if we got those lineups yet. Hunter Goodman recalled from AAA by the Rockies. We got the Rockies, we got the Rangers in, but we don't have the Cubbies or the Astros yet. All right. On we go here. All right, so Jameson Taillon, second start of the season, went 5 in the first outing. It was an okay start, faced 18 hitters against Miami, struck out 4, gave up a solo home run, but just 3 hits total. That was the only run he allowed. Last season, over 154 and a third, he struck out 21.4, walked just 6.3, but had a 4.84 ERA, a 4.49 xFIP, gave up a 10.7% barrel rate that led to a 4.12% home run rate, just a 9.6% swinging strike rate, 26.4% CSW. Year before that was similar in terms of those different things where he's limited, and then the power that he allowed and some premium contact, not quite as bad as that year, but I kind of like the idea. This is why I was saying I kind of like the idea of maybe some Astros, especially if they're going to be under-owned for the low run total. Again, this one's just sitting at a 7.5 run total, 3.71 on the Astros side. But they're potentially a little sneaky. Again, home run pick of the day for Jose Altuve. He's got 5 so far this season. Jordan Alvarez also has 5, and Kyle Tucker also has 5. So that's 15 home runs for the first 3 hitters over the course of 324 plate appearances. 3 stolen bases for Altuve, 4 stolen bases for Tucker so far. Alvarez off to the slowest start in that group. He's only with big quotation marks around it, only creating runs 42% better than average so far over his 106 plate appearances. Altuve's 98% better than average, and Tucker's at 70% better than average. That's a pretty killer 3-man off the top of this lineup. Alex Bregman's been dragging them down, 4,600, 2,700. He's extremely cheap for Alex Bregman, but the results have not been there. The premium contact has been largely absent the past few seasons. What I do still like is he's putting the ball in play, 11.1% strikeout rate. He's making contact or he's drawing some walks, but just a 289 on base, 203 average, a .063 ISO, 68 WRC plus to start his year. Pretty rough so far for Bregman. thought I just saw that lineup pop up, but I guess not. So pretty rough start for Bregman, but we do get to Jainer Diaz and Jeremy Pena in the heart of the projected lineup. Both of those guys out to decent starts. Diaz, 4,200, continues to be a reasonably playable one-off catcher, I think. Typically hits in the middle of the lineup. Seems like a pretty good spot. He's at 287, 330, 437 for the season, creating runs 24% better than average with 3 home runs on the board. Not a bad catcher option. 50.7% hard hit rate. Just a 13.8% strikeout rate to go with that. So just one of the better hitting catchers. I'm not going to say that I almost said that he hits the ball like one of the Contreras brothers, but he's kind of similar profile anyway. Nowhere near that level of faith in him yet, but for 4,200, for 2,900 on FanDuel, especially if this is the version of the lineup that you get, if they go with Abreu over John Singleton in this spot, I think you just consider Jainer Diaz the $2,900 first baseman on this team on FanDuel slates and just forgo Jose Abreu at the bottom of the lineup. Singleton's kind of more interesting than Abreu. At least he's a left-handed hitter against Taillon. So we'll see what we get from the Astros lineup. But Diaz is definitely playable on both sites. Pena for 4,000 on DraftKings, 3,000 on FanDuel. He's out to a great start. 330, 357, 447, creating runs 37% better than average, 2 homers, 4 steals. Solid. That's all he really needs to do to be valuable for this team. Hit the occasional home run, get yourself on base, help create runs, help the churn. This team is, historically very good at sequencing, creating runs even when they're not hitting homers, and just keeping guys on base. Another team that sees pitches, doesn't strike out a ton, and frustrates pitchers. Chas McCormick, slow start. Mauricio Dubon, not a bad start in 53 plate appearances at the bottom of the lineup. Greatly prefer Chas McCormick if we're fishing at the bottom of the lineup here, though. 3,700 for him in the outfield is cheap. 2,800 for him is also cheap on FanDuel in the outfield. Just good contact numbers over time. Decent home run total and stolen base total in a breakout season last year. Abreu is just dead at this point. 68 plate appearances, .065, 132.081, a .016 ISO, 136% worse than average, creating runs so far. Might be time to retire and take the millions of dollars back to Cuba and see what you can do. But it is not a good start to the season for Abreu. We saw this last year. He was dead the second half of the year before with the White Sox. Another guy that the White Sox cast off. Was dead the year before that with the White Sox. Was dead for most of the first half of last year. Turned it on a little bit. Finished last year with 18 home runs. But everything else was pretty bad. And now just seemed lost. 0 barrels on the season. Dubon, quadruple position eligibility is always interesting on FanDuel. 2,400. He's got a home run, a stolen base, a 115 WRC plus, 53 plate appearances. Very small sample, but a playable piece if you're making a bunch of Astros stacks. And then the Cubbies look pretty decent to me also on against Spencer Arrighetti. Again, let me check the weather again. Maybe I missed something. Is it really cold in Chicago today? I just don't know why this game has such a low run total. The wind's blowing in at 9. Yeah, it's 42 degrees, so that's where the low run total comes from. Because matchup-wise, these are low-end pitchers and some good offensives. Getting to the Cubbies, I think, works here. I don't know what the lineup is. I don't know if we're going to get Crow Armstrong in the lineup, but he's definitely going to be interesting if he is in there. Doesn't look like we've got any updates there yet. Where were they? Just want to see where PCA is coming from. They're in Buffalo today. If he was with the AAA team, the Iowa Cubs, if they were in Iowa, I'd be more optimistic. They were in Buffalo, so I'm not sure if he's going to make it to be with the team for this game. Depends on when they sent him the word versus when they announced it, obviously. Somebody give me the high sign if we get this lineup or if you've got it from somewhere else. I haven't seen it yet on Underdog. But he'll be one to watch. Premium prospect. so far this season in AAA. 2 home runs, 5 stolen bases, just 203, 241, 392. That's disappointing. I wasn't really keeping up with his numbers so far. Last year, in 342 AA plate appearances, hit 14 home runs, stole 27 bases, and then he added another 6 homers and 10 stolen bases in 158 plate appearances at AAA. So we're talking about 37 stolen bases and 20 homers across those 2 levels of the minors last year. That's the prospect that I'm looking at, not what he's done so far this year. So a little bit of speed, some pretty good mid-range power if we get him. Nico Horner, after we talked about it yesterday, must be a viewer. Stole his first base of the season. If he continues to lead off, I think he's interesting because that's what he does is just gets on base and sets the table for these other guys, finds some occasional stolen bases, but he's creating runs 14% better than average, getting on at a 368 clip. If he's going to start running, that's a bonus. Ian Happ, I like for a little bit of home run upside. I love his ability to get on base, 6.65 in the home run model, 359 on base, 112 WRC plus so far. We're going to ignore Cody Bellinger because he's obviously not in the lineup, just went on the IL. Michael Busch, 4,500, 3,300 for a guy who's blasted 6 home runs in 82 plate appearances, carrying an 18.8% barrel rate and 45.8% hard hits in the tiny sample. Another premium prospect for them, getting on at a 366 clip also, creating runs 60% better than average. I like that upside. I like Chris Morel for cheap pricing, especially with multi-position on these 2 guys anyway. Multi-position on FanDuel, outfield and third base for just $3,000. 4,300 at third base on DraftKings. Highest home run mark on the team at 8.31. I wonder if Carl Armstrong's in here. Nah. I was wondering if he would come. He wasn't going to get a projection because he's not on the hitter's tab, but I was wondering if he would come up if I put him in just to see what his home run number would look like, but guess it's not in there. Swanson, off to a slow start this season, but a shortstop that we really like for DFS because he's always under-owned. He's always fairly priced. He's got power. He's got a little bit of speed. 2 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 95 WRC plus. No real problems, just a couple bumpy games out of the gate. Matt Mervis, a lot of power for 2,500. Not on the FanDuel slate, unfortunately, but he's interesting at first base on the DraftKings slate if he's in the lineup. Lefty with a little bit of pop. Just 4 plate appearances so far this year. Last year in 99, he hit 3 home runs, but really struggled otherwise. But he's an interesting power bat across the minor leagues. In 441 AAA plate appearances last year, he hit 22 home runs. Pretty solid. Year before in 240 at AAA, 15 home runs, and in 230 at AA to start the season, 14, and another 7 in 100 plate appearances at high A. So pretty good power hitter over time in the minor leagues. So I definitely think Mervis, especially if he climbs the lineup, let's say he's hitting up in this direction to replace Bellinger somewhere, kind of interesting. Tauchman, very good at getting on base. I think he had a decent game yesterday. 2 home runs on the season, 397 on base percentage. Good for a little bit of surprise lefty power and getting on base and providing correlated scoring. So not really an option to leave out all that often if you're making a bunch of Cub stacks. He doesn't go in your first one necessarily, but at 3,300 he certainly could as a value guy who's always going to be underpopular. That doesn't work. Underowned. John Gomes, kind of an afterthought at the bottom of the lineup for a catcher. So for me, it's kind of a yes on the Astros side, especially at the top of the lineup. No issues with grabbing that 3-man off the top, mix in some Diaz, some Pena, we're off and running. And then on the Cubs side, pending what the lineup looks like, I think there's at least quality there, and I have no issues with targeting Spencer Arrighetti. You're just under projected because of the cold weather, but these guys can overcome that. It's not like it doesn't turn Spencer Arrighetti into Nolan Ryan. Not that Nolan Ryan wasn't the best example there. Greg Maddux. In his 2 starts, Arrighetti's lasted just 7 innings. He's got an 11.57 ERA, a 5.21 xFIP, 21.1% strikeouts, and 13.2% walks. A 2.29 whip is ridiculous. 14.5% swinging strike rate, 27.7% CSW in the tiny sample. That amounted to 3 strikeouts and 3 walks, 7 earned runs on 7 hits in 3 innings to the Royals at Kansas City. He faced the Braves, was a little bit better against them, just 2 earned runs on 4 hits in 4 innings, struck out 5 and walked 2. But I really don't like the upside for him. He's in the bargain bin if you want him on the DraftKings slate. Between the two guys, I probably would just opt for the 6,500, opt for the 1,000 salary savings and take the visiting pitcher. I consider them at basically the same level here. But it's bats on both sides for me. But maybe you deprioritize them because of the cold. Because of the cold, Arcathelza. 40-degree day. Mama Nobel degree. You guys still here? I'm still here. You guys still here? Somebody give me the high sign that you guys are still here. I just dropped my phone on the keyboard and it accidentally killed the stream. Just give me a thumbs up that you can still see me. Andy Melman says we're here. All right, cool. Little technical difficulties. Yeah, a moron dropped his phone on the keyboard and hit the whatever key activates the reload. Oops. Teach me to pick up my phone. Good stuff. Pink hand wave back to Andy Melman. Arcathelsa thought he got shot. So yes, it's because of the cold weather in Chicago that it's a low run total there. But again, I kind of like those two teams to overcome that against those pitchers. Let's talk Garrett Crochet. 25 2/3 over 5 starts, 32.7% strikeout rate so far. Very good. A 5.61 ERA, not so good. But a much better xFIP than that, 2.83 xFIP, just a 1.01 whip. I love the 15.3% swinging strike rate, the 31.1% CSW. He's given up a 4.81% home run rate, but just on 4.8% barrels in a small sample, 46% hard hits, and average launch angle. But if we look at the game log, 1 home run allowed to the Braves over 7 innings. Okay, that's fine. 1 home run allowed at the Royals over 5. That's fine. In the Braves game, he struck out 8. In his debut start against the Tigers, he also struck out 8. Pitched 6 innings in that one. A little bit more problematic in the last 2 starts. He faced the Reds, but not in Cincinnati. Struck out 10, walked 3, gave up 5 earned on 4 hits. But xFIP will tell us that a lot of that didn't seem to be his fault. On the Phillies game, the most recent start on the 19th, that was the disaster, and that's where a lot of the home run rate that he's allowed so far came from. He gave up 3 home runs in just 3 innings to the Phillies. Only faced 16 hitters, struck out 3, walked 2, 3 home runs, 7 earned, and 5 hits. The Twins are not this Phillies team. Over time, Crochet in his relief work has been good at limiting home runs, so you can see the impact in the Twins home run model is still kind of reflecting the guy from relief work who didn't allow that many home runs. Before the 3 homers in that game, it really wasn't a problem. Now we're going to have to see how he does over the next few starts in terms of the home runs that he allows in the premium contact and kind of evaluate where he needs to be because it gets a little bit wacky when we work in with one of these guys who's a converted reliever with a little bit of track record. So it's one to watch, but I'm not really concerned about this, especially with this where it is. The barrel rate at just 4.8% in the small sample. And then again, the swinging strikes are terrific. The strike throwing in general. Stuff Plus loves him at 111. I mean, there's a lot to work with the lefty. He's going up against a confirmed Twins lineup with a 24% strikeout rate. So there's plenty of strikeouts for him to hunt here. They have Ryan Jeffers up in the leadoff spot. So remember before when I said there were some interesting catchers in interesting spots in lineups? That was Ryan Jeffers. I do think the Twins are playable against Crochet here. Jeffers primarily at 4,100 on DraftKings. If you're looking for a one-off catcher, that's not a bad option. Just a 2.75 in the home run model, but again, that's maybe a little bit unreliable given the nature of Crochet's history. 3 home runs already for Jeffers. A 32% hard hit rate with an 8% barrel rate. Not ideal, but last year 11.6% barrels. Definitely more targetable, 42% hard hits. Year before, 13.2% barrels, 42% hard hits. So we know that Ryan Jeffers can hit some home runs. Getting a catcher in the leadoff spot is kind of valuable. So that's my favorite thing about this Minnesota lineup. I prefer Crochet on the other side of the game in a head-to-head, have to pick one kind of a scenario. That's the island I want to go to. That's where I think the food is. I think you starve on the other island, but If I have to go to the Twins, I'll take Ryan Jeffers as a one-off. If I have to grab more than one Twin, then I'm going to go to Byron Buxton. He's surging a little bit. We're up to 247, 273, 411, 96 WRC plus. Got a home run and a handful of doubles over his last few games. Don't want to talk about it too much and jinx him. 3.82 in the home run model. 2,700 is very, very cheap for Byron Buxton's talent. So is 4,200 on DraftKings. The Twins are cheap. I'll give them that much. Manny Margot in the 3 spot. Not an ideal 3-hitter. 171, 277, 244 this year. 61 WRC plus. Got a home run. Typically hits higher in the lineup against the lefty or gets into the lineup at all against the lefty. But Manny's really more here for his defense. Jose Miranda, 3,000, 2,200. Cheap enough. Just 212, 257, 333, a 73 WRC plus over 35 plate appearances. Last year, 152 plate appearances, 3 homers, a 57 WRC plus. Year before that, though, 483 plate appearances, 268, 325, 426. Effective enough, created runs 17% better than average, hit 15 home runs. Just been in and out of the lineup way too much over the past couple seasons. Carlos Santana, best days are well behind him, 3,100, 2,200. If we're just fishing around for bargain plays, he is very, very cheap, maintaining a 40% hard hit, but just a 2% barrel rate in his 75 plate appearances. No homers, way below the Mendoza line, 240 on base, a 26 WRC plus. Austin Martin, 102 WRC plus, 1 home run on the board in 48 plate appearances. Christian Vasquez, 1 home run on the board with a 150, 167, 225, and a WRC plus of 8 over 44 plate appearances. Another player whose best days are behind him. And then my 2 guys at the bottom of the lineup, I'll always have a little bit of room in my heart for Kyle Farmer and Willie Castro. Castro, when he's going right, steals bases, 76 plate appearances. He's only got 1 because he's getting on at a 276 clip, 169 batting average. Not going to get it done. 65 WRC plus for him. And then Kyle Farmer, both these guys multi-position for cheap pricing. Farmer, no home runs yet. He's stolen 2 bases. Who keeps calling me? Getting weird unknown calls from a number in Abilene, Texas. Is this one of you guys? Farmer. So Farmer, we're looking for the cheap home run power that we got. The last couple seasons, 11 homers, sneaky in 369 plate appearances at the bottom of the lineup. 14 homers the year before. Not a good power hitter by any means, but just a guy that nobody ever plays, like a Michael A. Taylor, who was in this lineup with him last year. So just on the radar for that kind of a thing, but probably not until we see him actually do anything this season. It's been pretty rough for Farmer and Castro at the bottom of the lineup. But I kind of like those guys better than at least Vasquez and Carlos Santana, maybe Margot and Miranda. So maybe it's like these 2 and these 2 in a weird kind of an approach to a stack. It's at least very, very cheap. But again, these 2 struggling badly. And then the White Sox. That's one of the worst lineups I've ever seen. Danny Mendick, Gavin Sheets, Eloy Jimenez, who had a great game yesterday and is up to 2 home runs and a stolen base and a 97 WRC plus after that in 41 plate appearances. Andrew Vaughn, Andrew Benintendi, Paul DeYoung, Kevin Pillar, Braden Shoemaker, and Corey Lee. That is weak. This team, this lineup has 6, 8, 10 home runs combined. So one more than Marcelo Ozuna has by himself. Handful of stolen bases. Creating runs, including that 195 at the top in 9 plate appearances for Danny Mendick. That's still an average WRC plus of 88. And if you think Danny Mendick's going to be 95% better than average for run creation all season, I have a bridge to sell you. I wouldn't play the White Sox against Joe Ryan. Ryan's out to a great start, 22 2/3, 32.3% strikeout rate, just a 3.2% walk rate, 3.57 ERA, and a 2.56 xFIP, 13.3% swinging, 30.8% CSW. He gives up a little bit of premium contact, a little bit of bumps with home runs from time to time, 4.76% home run rate last year, 41.6% hard hits, 90 miles an hour of exit velo, and he's a fly ball pitcher. So when you get that premium contact on the trajectory that he typically yields, it's going to allow some home runs, but it wasn't really a problem. I mean, 4.51 ERA, all right, but a 3.76 xFIP, 29.3% strikeouts and 161 2/3, 29 starts last year, was very good the year before that. I have a ton of faith in Joe Ryan. 10-6, 10-4, no issues with the price. Top pitcher on the board by a pretty wide margin. So for this one, for me, Joe Ryan, gigantic yes. Garrett Crochet, pretty decent size yes. Maybe some cheap Twins bats, especially just for value and to hedge off a crochet position, or maybe it'd be a little bit contrarian. I think it's cheap enough that it makes some sense to look at some of those Twins. White Sox really not though. Outside of maybe some Eloy Jimenez one-offs, just hunting for that home run. He does have a 10.73, one of the guys above the magic number for home run power today. If you're going to three-man it, it would be these three guys and like only those three guys. Maybe you work Paul DeJong in there and not Pilar. Yeah, it's dicey. It's probably just these three guys. DeJong does have 3 home runs and a 108 WRC plus on the season. Gavin Sheets, a couple of triples. He's got 3 home runs. He's got a stolen base. He's creating runs 57% better than average with a 246 ISO on this terrible team. Over 74 plate appearances. Don't think we're gonna see even this level of sustained success from Gavin Sheets. So really weak team. Wouldn't go there. Both pitchers, top pitching spot on the board. We have this Blue Jays lineup. Blue Jays. The hell are they? Nope. Oh, we do. Let's see. Springer, Guerrero, Bichette. Ooh, no Turner today. That sucks. Varsho climbing the lineup. All right, let me pop this in here real quick. All right, so it's Varsho. He's been surging. Varsho's putting things together a little bit this year after being so disappointing last year and for the start of the very early part of this season. All right, so Danny Jansen. Vogel back in the lineup today. Ernie Clement. It's a different lineup. Who the hell is Barger? Addison Barger. I do not know this player. So they called him up instead of Elvis Martinez, it looks like. He is on the DraftKings slate at the dead men. Let's get him into the player pool. Oh, and he's going to put his handedness in here. Lefty hitter. Those who pay close attention when these things have to happen could one day steal the model, know how to use it. My general stance is that if I gave this to anybody, they would just not be able to make it work because it's just so bolted together and cobbled together over the years, like you guys have seen. I got to put the schedule into 2 different places. It's just it's a hodgepodge to make this thing work. So I don't worry about somebody stealing it and figuring it out. But maybe if you watch the show a lot, you've been able to piece together kind of how it works. Anyway, so Addison Barger, dead min price, third base and shortstop eligible on DraftKings. In the minor leagues so far this season, 85 plate appearances, 3 home runs, just a 17.6% strikeout rate, 16.5% walks, a 271 ISO. Last year, over 397 plate appearances, only 9 home runs, 5 stolen bases, a 153 ISO, 21.7% strikeouts. Was good with a 13.1% walk rate. It led to 250, 353, 403 triple slash. Just a 92 WRC plus, though, 343 WOBA. That's not really that impressive a season. 2022... That's what, 26 home runs? That's pretty good across 3 levels of the minors, 9 stolen bases, mixed bag of triple slash. was much better in 2022 than he was last year or than he was at the start of this year. But, well, no, I shouldn't say that. Start of this year has been good, over 85. Last year was just a little rough for him. 23 years old at AAA last year, 24 now. The prospect blurb on Fangraph says he's got an elaborate swing that generates huge bat speed as well as some erratic whiffs. So it sounds like he's one of the big looping swing type guys. Not egregiously bad strikeouts in the minors. Anywho, it's a different lineup than I was expecting, but I still kind of like the Blue Jays here against Alec Marsh. Marsh just a 17.8% strikeout rate so far this year. 3.22 ERA, a 4.07 xFIP. He doesn't walk too many. He's got a good whip. Just only an 8.8% swinging strike rate so far, 25.7% CSW. Not really allowing much in terms of premium contact so far this year. Stuff plus marks are not great. Last year he was better in terms of the strikeouts, 24.9% strikeouts over 74 and a third, 8 starts, 12.3% swinging, 28.7% CSW. So that's dipped. But last year he also walked 11.4%, had a bad whip, bad ERA, bad xFIP, was very targetable for home run upside. So kind of like the idea of some Blue Jays here, and they're very cheap. For the talent that you get in George Springer, Vladdy Guerrero, and Bo Bichette, for all these guys to be under $4,600 that Vladdy costs on DraftKings, that's pretty good. $3,031 a piece for those guys on FanDuel. You can just work Varsho right into there. No Justin Turner. It sucks on FanDuel because you can play Turner and Vladdy in the same lineup on FanDuel. I actually had it in my placeholder. You get Danny Vogel back now. He's a $2,300 option at first base on the FanDuel slate, $2,900 on the DraftKings slate. Does have a pretty decent home run mark at 7.92. You've got a nice stretch of power there. Springer and Vladdy both over the magic number. Then Bo Bichette and Dalton Varsho pushing right up against it. And Danny Jansen also butting up against it. So not a bad stretch of power against Marsh here. Kind of still like the Blue Jays for as cheap as they are. Springer, not a great start to his season, 91 WRC+. Bo Bichette just at a 94 WRC+. Both of those guys over time are very good hitters, so getting them for the discount that they're at right now, happy to take it. They're also still just not striking out that much. Springer anyway is drawing his walks, so I like the pending turnaround for these guys maybe to start today. Dalton Varsho, like I said, surging. He's up to 6 home runs, 3 stolen bases, a 319 ISO, 158 WRC+. Lefty hitter over 80 plate appearances. That's pretty solid. I'll take the home run marks. Just 3,500 in the outfield on DraftKings, 31 on FanDuel. Up to the cleanup spot today. Makes a lot of sense. Vogelback last year had a 49.5% hard hit rate, 9.3% barrels. Resulted in, 13 home runs? Yeah, 13 home runs in 319 plate appearances. Year before that, 18 home runs in 461. We know that Daniel Vogelback's capable of hitting cheap lefty home runs against mediocre right-handed pitching. So on that note, I think you can get to him at the 6th spot in the lineup. Ernie Clement, 2 homers, a stolen base, decent triple slash to start the year, 205 ISO and a 131 WRC+. He looks playable. Kevin Biggio's been pretty decent to start the season, 127 WRC+. Oddly, the problems for the Blue Jays haven't been down here. It's been more up here with their good players. So I think you can mix and match your way to a decent stack from grabbing a couple of these guys and then just rely on the 3-man core to turn it around. I like the Blue Jays here. At 7,000, even if you were guaranteeing me this version of Alec Marsh in terms of the strikeouts, I still don't think it's valuable on DraftKings, especially if that leads me to last year's power numbers against. Blue Jays just look decent to me today, so I think I'm on the Toronto side of that matchup pretty firmly. And then Yadiel, we talked about a little bit off the top. 7 2/3 in his 2 starts, 40.6% strikeouts, dominating. Unfortunately, it comes with the big innings concern. First start, 3 2/3, faced 16 hitters, struck out 6, gave up an earned run on a home run. Also gave up a solo home run, 1 earned run in his second, so a solo home run in each game. Struck out 7 of 16 Padres in 4 innings. But we're probably only dealing with like a 5-inning cap at most here. So I think it's kind of questionable, shaky on FanDuel without the quality start bonus. On DraftKings, as long as we get 5, I do think he's in play. 8,000 puts him on that value board for me. Love the strikeout upside. He's an experienced guy. He's not a super young kid. I think he's in his later 20s. Pitched for the Cuban national team for a number of years, several seasons in the NPB, the Japanese Baseball League. Gunnar Henderson, another home run. So Jadiel comes with a decent track record already. Not in the majors, but a reliable track record in professional baseball and 2 very good starts to begin his major league career. Walking a few too many, putting a couple guys on base, but a very good swinging strike. I like the opportunity here. Maybe gives up a little bit of power. I do think that you can take a position with Royals on the other side of that. Michael Garcia continues to astound in the leadoff spot. 194, 245, 376, creating runs 28% worse than average. Just keep on rolling him out in that leadoff spot and rely on the raw talent to take over at some point, I guess. Bobby Witt, 63-37, full price superstar talent. No issues with going to him there. Larry said, did Terry order onion rings for the table? Sopranos joke. Going back to me getting clipped there when I dropped the thing on the keyboard. Continuing on with the Royals. So Bobby Witt, easy enough to get to, especially with everybody around him cheap. Nobody else over 5,000 among the guys that you want to play. Everybody cheap on FanDuel too. And Witt himself at 3,700 kind of cheap on the FanDuel slate. So that's an easy spot. 316, 362, 582 for him at 265 ISO. 4 homers, 5 steals. Vinny Pasquantino, 4 home runs. Crushing the ball, 215 ISO, 136 WRC plus so far. Striking out at just a 10.8% rate, up to a 14% walk rate, 42.9% hard hits. If he ever learns how to elevate the ball, we're looking at a lot more home runs. But really like Vinny Pasquantino for 48.31. Sal, 4,900, 3,400 as a catcher, especially where the position's required on DraftKings. Absolutely, you can grab some shares of Sal. 337, 394, 593 to start the season, 256 ISO, 6 home runs. Looking like Sal from a couple years ago so far. Melendez going to be hits and misses with the triple slash, just 219, 296, 452, but a 233 ISO, 4 home runs, 13% barrels, 40.7% hard hits, 109 WRC plus. Not a terrible strikeout rate for the power that he can provide, 23.5%. Knows how to draw his walks. I like MJ for 4,500, 2,900. I also like Nelson Velasquez at 4,300, 2,900. He's just got 2 home runs, but he hit the ridiculous, 17 in 100 and change plate appearances last year? 179 plate appearances. He hit 17 home runs with a 352 ISO last year. So we know there's power lurking there. 6.8% barrels, 43.2% hard hits last year. Obviously pales in comparison to 21.4% barrels from last year. This was this year. 21.4% from last year, but a 257, 325, 400. Pushing things up a little bit with the triple slash. Adam Frazier, Kyle Isbell, Hunter Renfroe at the bottom. A little bit short of a lineup. Top 6 is pretty high quality. Bottom 3rd, a little bit weak. Renfroe off to a bad start. All 3 guys below the Mendoza line. Nobody getting on base really well. Everybody well below average for run creation. So top 6, and then if we're telling the truth, it's maybe 2 through 6. So there's your 5-man right there. But I do like that 5-man, and I think they're underpriced for their quality. Even if you get a good start from Jadiel, you're probably getting into the bullpen by the 5th inning. There's opportunity there. That might shorten the opportunity, but he's definitely not been invulnerable to premium contact. As I mentioned, a solo home run in each game, 18.8% barrels. This is all extremely small sample. But there's a little bit of exit velo, some hard hits, some barrels in there. So I think you can get away with both sides of that on DraftKings. I probably wouldn't go to Jadiel on FanDuel, but I would take some shots with Royals. Blue Jays bats, Jadiel on DraftKings, and Royals bats a little bit on both sides. Not the top priority stack, though. I respect the talent on the mound. Mariners and the Rangers. We've got both lineups here. Beautiful. 5 o'clock. Taking our sweet time meandering through this little 3-game slate, but it's been fun. Not that that's atypical. All right, let's see what we got lineups-wise. Josh Rojas climbing the lineup for the Mariners. That's surprising. Otherwise, roughly what we were expecting there. No Cal Raleigh for the Mariners. That sucks. That's who was missing. Sebi Zavala. So they're still going with the two catcher approach with Mitch Garver in there. Sebi Zavala joining him at the catcher position. Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Nathaniel Lowe, Adolis Garcia, Carter Smith. Looks pretty typical for the Rangers side of things. Let's start with Bryce Miller. 9,400 on DraftKings. Projects out pretty well. Not top of the board, but I think good enough for the 94 that you get away with some shares, especially if you're building a lot of lineups in big tournaments. I think he's probably going to be under-owned for his talent. It's just a bad matchup. The Rangers are a good lineup. At 10-2 on FanDuel, it's a little bit thinner, given everything I just said. But Miller, 4 starts, 24 and a third, pitches deep into ball games. 5 innings in his first start against Boston, struck out 6, walked 2, gave up 4 earned runs. That was his only real clunky start of the season. 2 home runs allowed in that one. Next start went 7 against Milwaukee, struck out 7, walked 1, allowed 3 hits, but shut them out over those innings. An unearned run allowed in 6 and a third against the Cubbies in the next start, just 3 hits in that one. Struck out 4, but walked 3. Struck out 7, walked 1, allowed a solo home run in 6 innings against the Reds in his most recent start. Bryce Miller's really good. 26.1% strikeouts, 1.85 ERA, 3.52 xFIP in the tiny sample. Good stuff plus marks. An excellent four-seam fastball. In 131 innings last year, 22.2% strikeout rate, 4.8% walks, a 4.32 ERA with a 4.31 xFIP. A little bit too much premium contact allowed as a rookie last season, but hopefully cleaning that up so far this year. Not really in terms of the barrel rate, but the hard hits are there. Home runs, we'll see what happens going forward. But a couple clean games so far. I like the ceiling for Miller. I like the upside for Miller, but maybe not your most reliable start, right? It's right in with what he looks like on the board. Right? Probably some better options there, but very, very playable from where he's at. Rangers bats, I do think you can go there against him, but everybody below the magic number for home run upside, you're dealing with a scuffling Corey Seager, just 262, 340, 321, a 92 WRC plus, only 1 home run to start the season. That said, you're getting Corey Seager at 3,400 on FanDuel and 5,700 on DraftKings. Makes him pretty cheap. You also get Semien at only 53 on DraftKings for, really, I'm not sure why. He's out of the gate at 267, 327, 446. He's got a 124 WRC plus. He's got 4 homers, a stolen base. Yeah, the ISO's a little bit low at 178. He's not completely destroying the ball, but he's been pretty good. Nathaniel Lowe up to the 3rd spot in the lineup. Adolis Garcia coming in 4th. 5,400, 4,200. Full price for Garcia, but 6 home runs, 4 steals, a 172 WRC plus, a 281 ISO. Absolute superstar in the outfield there. And then Lowe is a good left-handed hitter. 3,800, 2,700. Probably pretty cheap for him. Last year in 724 plate appearances, 262, 360, 414. Very good for correlated scoring and getting on base. And in years past, has hit for more average and a little bit more power. 17 home runs in the 724 plate appearances last year, just a 262 average. The year before that, 645 plate appearances, so fewer opportunities, hit 27 home runs, hit 302. Nathaniel Lowe is a good player, 143 WRC plus that year. So getting him back in this lineup is dynamite, and putting him in the 3 spot between these guys, I like that as a straight line stack. You can bolt Evan Carter into it for just 44 on DraftKings, 3,000 on FanDuel. The triple slash has been weak, 200, 307, 387, but creating runs 2% better than average, 3 homers and a stolen base so far. These 88 plate appearances, not as good as the 75 we got last year. He hit 5 home runs, stole 3 bases, slash 306, 413, 645 in that sample. Created runs 80% better than average, but he's been all right despite the weak front end of the triple slash. So I think we see upside in the future from Evan Carter. Josh Smith has been better than I think Josh Smith actually is so far. Just 131 WRC plus, but just a .077 ISO, no homers, no steals. So for DFS, hasn't been great. A little bit of correlated scoring there. Wyatt Langford mentioned it yesterday, gotten screwed on a couple out of the zone strike calls. By the way, did you guys see the Juan Soto? No strikes thrown in the entire at-bat. Every pitch out of the zone. Ridiculous. Jonah Heim, 4,000, 3,000 at the bottom of the lineup. A little bit of catcher power, 3 home runs on the season, a 162 ISO, 101 WRC plus. Cheap catcher, but if I'm just hunting for catcher one-offs, I'm, again, preferring to get him from higher up in the lineup. And we've got kind of an ideal one on the board. Leody Taveras, 65 WRC plus, not that appealing. On the Mariners side, they're going up against John Gray. I mentioned Gray off the top of the show. Had that weird inning in 2/3 on the 20th against Atlanta. It's the 24th, so we're talking about 4 days rest after throwing an inning in 2/3, facing 5 hitters. He struck out 4 of them. He's only pitched in the 6th inning once this season in his 5 outings. Or maybe that was in the 6th inning, but he didn't start that game. Let's put it that way. But in starts, worked 3 2/3 in the first 2 games, 5 innings in the 3rd game, and then 6 innings in his 4th game. 9 strikeouts against the Athletics, 7 strikeouts against the Tigers. In the first 2 starts, the 3 2/3 inning starts, just 2 strikeouts against the Cubbies and 3 strikeouts against the Astros. I'm not totally sure what to make of either the start to the season or the opportunity today for Jon Gray. It's really tricky. He projects out well because I'm giving him the full expectation of innings. He's striking out hitters in the tiny sample at a 28.4% clip, which is up from his 21.6 last year, 25.7 the year before. Obviously, very small sample, but we're getting more swinging strikes. We're getting a better CSW. We're also getting more walks. We're getting a lot of barrels, a lot of hard hit balls in tiny, tiny sample. And I don't know if he's going to be able to pitch even 5 innings, let alone 6. I expect we're probably looking at 5, and then they'll go to the pen. I don't really see them grinding Jon Gray down with more than 6 innings. So I think the ceiling is a little capped. Normally it's a spot I'd be looking into because that Mariners lineup, you can see it right there, 27% strikeout rate for this confirmed version of the lineup. And with no Cal Raleigh, you take a threat away. Putting Sebi Zavala into it, that's not an even trade-off. Josh Rojas hitting 6th. Not really worried there. So it's a weaker version of the Mariners lineup with a lot of strikeouts in it. It's an appealing spot. I just don't know that I can trust Jon Gray to give me 6 innings. 8,300 on DraftKings. The price is a little high for the 5 innings and a win, but 5 innings and a win may get you there as an SP2. Right here, it's kind of like what I was saying about Miller. Just kind of looks like who he is on the board, but you're getting a much better value there. 75 on FanDuel becomes questionable without the quality start. He could go 6. I haven't seen anything official from the team saying he's not going 6. Just a little speculation. Mamba likes Marsh. Mama's saying, I don't understand why Marsh isn't a higher owned. I'll be playing him hopefully for the win. He only needs 23 to 25 on this slate. I agree with the only needing 23 to 25. I don't know. I don't love them for the win. I kind of like the Blue Jays and what we're seeing in the power. And I'm not the biggest Marsh guy in the world. Bryce Miller I like a lot more. I think it's just the matchup there. Matchup and price. Like people would just go into other options not facing the Rangers for price. So that's what I like with pitchers like that, where it's like, all right, really talented pitcher for an appropriate price, but people don't like paying that against the Rangers, so they'll go away from it. Now you get a low-owned Bryce Miller. That offsets any price tax for me. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But you still got to it for the right reasons. So I like that. Low is the other home run in the model. Low or Rizzo. I'd say fewer question marks about Nathaniel Lowe. Better spot in the lineup. Facing a much better pitcher. It's a toss-up. Probably would lean Yankees just because of the higher run total, the higher expectations for that lineup to succeed. So maybe the rising tide impact. But I have fewer question marks right now about Nathaniel Lowe. Tough call there. That's one I might just let lineup construction and an optimizer decide. So looking down that lineup, if you're going to the Mariners side of that, which I do think you can do, Gray by no means invulnerable on the mound. He's walking too many. He's given up, plenty of runs and power in his career. So JP Crawford, a little bit down to start the season, just a 296 on base, below the Mendoza line, over 98 plate appearances, creating runs 15% worse than average. If he's not doing his thing getting on base, he's not really that useful in the leadoff spot, but he's hitting ahead of Julio. Julio had a successful day. Somebody had mentioned it in the chat, the Julio and Cal Raleigh combo. That worked out in a big way. Whoever that was, I hope you won something with that combo last night because that worked out well. But no Raleigh today. You get Jorge Polanco hitting 3rd. You get Mitch Haniger hitting 4th. Ty France, Josh Rojas. Kind of low end. A lot of strikeouts through the upper part of the lineup there. 31.3% so far for Julio, 30.5% for Jorge, 27.9% for Mitch. Ty France, 21.5%. That's even high for Ty France. He's a pretty good bat-on-ball hitter, but he lacks power. Not a great DFS option. 3,600, 2,700. He's at least effectively priced. He did have a decent season for home runs 2 years ago, but that was in the high teens. Not a big-time power bat. Rojas off to an okay start over 55 plate appearances, creating runs 46% better than average, 306, 382, 429, but we're not really expecting fireworks from Josh Rojas here. So it's a pretty weak version of this Mariners lineup. Garver and Raley for cheap power late, 7.39 in the home run model for Garver, 5.99 for Raley. Just one home run between the two of them. Then they're at a 150 and a 205, 288 and 225, 250 and 282, creating runs at a 72% clip and a 48% clip. Not great. And then Zavala's an afterthought at the bottom of the lineup. So Bryce Miller's a yes. Rangers bats as a hedge or a, just a contrarian approach, I think are fine. Just with the top end Rangers that you would normally get to. Not a great spot considering that Miller's really, really good, but I do think you can play some Rangers against him. Limited doses though, small shares. And I'm not that enthusiastic about Gray. That relief appearance really has me worried. I'm really not sure what to make of that just 4 days ago. So he's kind of off the board for me. I can absolutely see him succeeding here. If you had your heart set on playing John Gray, by all means, fire away. But it's just not for me with that. It's a little bit weird. Love the strikeout opportunity. Even in 5 innings, he could put up a good strikeout game and have a pretty successful DFS start. But I'm really concerned about what the depth looks like. You can take some shots with the top of the Mariners lineup, but they've just not been that good this year. A lot of questions about that team. Last game up is the Coors game. Hit the like if you haven't. Hit the subscribe if you haven't. Jump into the Discord if you haven't. If you scroll up in the chat, there is a link to the Discord that actually works. Monty Pritchett saying it's Lynn from the Philippines. I don't know what that means. That was back just after the blackout. Is that a blackout joke somehow? I don't know I don't know who Lynn from the Philippines is. Or are you Lynn and you're just saying hi from the Philippines, Monty Pritchett? Either way, hello. Not too many over 10 in the home run model again. Is this normal for April? Yeah, you do see lower numbers a little bit. Part of what feeds the home run model is the just run totals in Vegas that feeds the entire model. And you can see some of these are just typically lower until we get into warmer weather. So yeah, to some degree, but it's also matchups based. But yeah, for the entire day, that was 9 guys in, and then if we're considering guys in this range, I think you can extend that out. If we consider 9 the magic number, 10 is somewhat arbitrary. If we consider it 9, then you're talking about 21 guys. So yeah, for over 10, it is more limited, but there's a pretty tight bunch of guys right in here. A lot of Houston, some Toronto in there. I like both those spots, and obviously some Braves. There you go, Monty. I got you. Your Phantom Color has a deal too good to be true. Tonight only, live from the Philippines. Good stuff. Would have had you if I had seen that in real time. Let's see. All right. So Rockies lineup is here. I think the Rockies are interesting tonight. They're super cheap for a team playing at Coors. They are one of the few teams with a 5+ total. It was higher before this came down to 11 runs instead of 11.5. They're certainly underdogs, but they're facing Matt Waldron, a knuckleballer. We have a really limited sample of knuckleballers pitching at Coors Field just over the history of knuckleballers, or the history of Coors Field, I guess I should say. As I was poking around, there's a lot of theory that suggests that based on what Coors does to pitches, and the impact that it has, the Magnus force and the impact of the thin air and the gravity on pitches and the lack of resistance against the knuckleball, that it's probably going to flatten out a knuckleball and make it not really dance and do its weird knuckleball things where nobody knows which direction it's moving. It's going to make it just like a flat batting practice fastball, which is essentially exactly what R.A. Dickey said when he was interviewed about pitching in Colorado. R.A. Dickey, famous knuckleballer from 15, 20 years ago at this point, came on late in his career, developed the knuckleball at like age, later on. I think his best season was age 37. Pitched with the Mets, had a 20-win season, dominant season, and is one of the more high-profile knuckleballers in recent memory. And they were talking, I forget what outlet it was, they were talking to R.A. Dickey back then, saying, have you ever pitched at Coors Field? What do you think the effect of a knuckleball would be? And Dickey said, no, I never pitched in a game at Coors Field, but I pitched bullpens at Coors Field. And then he had pitched in the minor leagues at Colorado Springs. And he said, my experience at elevation and in this environment is that the knuckleball completely dies, that it is complete death for the knuckleball. And I'm just up there throwing 77-mile-an-hour batting practice fastballs. So even this Rockies team can hit 77-mile-an-hour batting practice fastballs. The knuckleball is typically difficult to generate power against, and you can see that for Waldron in the hard hit rate up there. Just 30.2% hard hits so far, despite an 11.1% barrel rate. But if you take that away and you just straighten that knuckleball out, now it's not dancing. That's the reason it's difficult to hit hard, not because it's a aggressively good pitch. It's just a weird, unpredictable pitch. So if it's just going to be floating in the middle of the strike zone at 77 miles an hour, there are some hitters in this lineup that can turn on that. So I'm kind of interested in some Rockies here. I think they're cheap. They're typically going to be lower owned than their opponents. Their opponents on the other side of this game is also interesting. Ty Blach, as of last check anyway, supposed to be opening this game. Let me confirm that. He's still the listed guy. So in looking at the recent work in the bullpen, for one, Ty Blach coming out of here probably going to pitch like an inning or two. One inning pitched so far for the season, but it was just like 2 days ago. So I don't expect much from Blach. It was on the 22nd. Faced 3 hitters, struck out 1. That's all we've gotten from Ty Blach at this point. Don't expect him in there for long. And you can see the Padres stack up decently well against him. Tatis over the magic number for home run power. Campusano with a decent home run mark. Some of these guys in the middle. No Manny Machado again here, by the way, in the projected. 6.69 in the home run model for a struggling Xander Bogaerts. Some reasonable numbers there, some reasonable projections, but they're not at a killer total. But the guy I most expect to be the bulk reliever is this guy, Anthony Molina. He last pitched like 4 days ago through 40, 50 some odd pitches. Everybody else has been more taxed than that. This isn't coming from the team. This is me speculating, but you can see what he does to the home run numbers if we switch over to him. Those go up pretty aggressively. Everybody's projection shoots through the roof. So if we get that guy coming out of the pen, bonus to the Padres. He's 4,000 on the DraftKings slate. As Krusty the Clown said, I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot clown pole. Just not a good option and definitely makes the Padres appealing if that's who we get. The good news, if that's not who we get, basically everybody else in that Colorado bullpen is just as bad. So whoever comes out of there after Ty Blach, I think you got a great opportunity for the Pods. The Pods are going to be popular, but for good cause. They're at a 6.12 implied total today, by far the highest on the board. Easy to justify them. They're not that expensive. Tatis at 6,100 in a Coors game on DraftKings. It's appropriate. 47. It's high, but appropriate on FanDuel. Bogey is a little bit cheap. 3,600, 5,000. FanDuel's got it right. 5,000 on DraftKings is a little cheap. Cronenworth is definitely cheap on the DraftKings slate. Maybe a little expensive for my tastes for that player on FanDuel, but I get it for Coors Field. Jerkson Profar at just 4,000 is cheap. 3,500, same thing. Little expensive for my taste for that player, but I get it because it's Coors Field. Ha-Seong Kim, 4,500. Shortstop only on DraftKings, no positional flex, but that's a cheap price for such a good player. Triple position eligible at 38. I'm happy to pay the tax on the FanDuel slate. 3 homers, 7 steals for Kim, 108 WRC+. The guys ahead of him, Tatis is obviously a superstar. Cronenworth, 125 WRC+, 3 home runs, decent triple slash. Profar, 136 WRC+, 2 home runs, a stolen base, a decent triple slash. Only Bogey's been struggling at the top of the lineup. Below the Mendoza line, 277 on base, 2 homers, 2 steals, just a 66 WRC+. This is the spot of spots to get things turned around for Xander Bogaerts. Right? Draw the line in the sand here and no further. We march forward from here. Let's get the season going, Bogey. I like the opportunity for Bogaerts to do that. 5,000 at second base on DraftKings, 3,600, both middle infield spots on FanDuel. Campusano, Eggy Rosario, Jackson Merrill, Jose Azocar. Two of those guys are a little underwhelming from the bottom of the lineup, but performing a little bit so far. Eggy's got 2 home runs in his 36 plate appearances, a 149 WRC plus, and Azocar, 348, 400, 391 with a 132 WRC plus over 26 plate appearances. But Merrill is definitely interesting over his 94. He's got a home run and 4 stolen bases, creating runs 35% better than average. Very good triple slash, getting on base at a 394 clip. And then Campusano, an effective enough catcher. 288, 321, 413, 110 WRC plus. Just 1 home run, but a great hitting environment. So I wouldn't skip Campusano as a catcher. I would maybe keep him in mind if he gets a little bit. He's not going to be low owned, but if he's maybe a little bit under owned to like where he should be for the matchup and everything, kind of like it. So the pods are firmly on the board, and neither of the pitchers are. The Rockies, I think, against the questions about the knuckleball, are interesting here. And I'm looking at Charlie Blackmon off the top, despite some struggles to start this season. Just a 79 WRC plus, a 305 on base, 1 home run, 1 steal, 82 plate appearances. I'm looking at Charlie Blackmon for some correlated scoring, some premium, is not premium contact, but some contact. Just a 14.6% strikeout rate this year, 13.3% last year. Balls in play against the flat knuckleball sounds interesting to me. So I have Charlie Blackmon on the board. Tovar off to a good start this year. 312, 356, 473 after scuffling last year, but putting up decent counting stats. 3 home runs, 2 stolen bases. He costs just 4,700, 3,400 at shortstop. Ryan McMahon for 5,200, 3,400 across sites. Multi-position eligible on FanDuel. He's out to a 311, 390, 433 start, creating runs 16% better than average. 2 home runs on the board. Elias Diaz, another catcher, kind of in play, hitting cleanup today. 4,300, 3,200 across sites. Cheap enough to be a one-off catcher hitting in the cleanup spot against, again, potentially a flat knuckleball. 301, 350, 384 for his start to the season. Just a 93 WRC plus, only 1 home run. Hasn't been crazy productive, but the triple slash has been good. He's been putting bat on ball. Just hasn't really squared up much. 5.3% barrels and only 24.6% hard hits. But he was much better than that last year and the year before. So I like the opportunity for Diaz. Eleuders Montero hasn't really done much at the major league level, but does have a track record of power in the minors. Brenton Doyle for 4,300, 3,400. Interesting late lineup option. 3 home runs, 2 stolen bases. Climbing the lineup a little bit with the absence of somebody. Nolan Jones. Jones came out of the lineup last night with a hurt back. So Doyle moves up a little bit. We get Brendan Rodgers in there for 4,000, 2,900. He's out to a rough start. Really hasn't had the career that many expected. He's a bust of a prospect overall. But he's in there. He's cheap at second base, 4,000, 2,900 in the Coors Field game. If you're building a ton of Rocky stacks, you can get there. Jake Cave, a lefty hitter, 2,800 to 2,700. Very cheap from the bottom of the lineup. 69 WRC plus over 24 plate appearances. Hasn't done much this season. Last year, 5 home runs in 203 plate appearances. 5 home runs in 177 the year before that. A part-time player, with very limited success. But if I can build in a $2,800 bat on DraftKings especially, it's not uninteresting. You can see he doesn't project well, doesn't have much to speak of in terms of the home run mark, but it's not completely off the board for me, especially if I'm building a bunch of Rocky stacks. And then Sean Borchard, we talked about him yesterday. 43 plate appearances, 316, 372, 684 with a 160 WRC plus last year, hit 4 home runs in the tiny sample. 19 plate appearances this year has been pretty successful. So if you're rolling the dice already with Rockies, why not roll the dice with their 9-hitter for 3,100 in the outfield on DraftKings and 2,800 at first base on FanDuel. No positional conflicts though. So I think you can get there. I think probably want Doyle in that. It's like those two and then Blackmon. It's a stretch. But if you go like Blackmon and McMahon, you connect those guys enough. It's not the best stack in terms of construction, but a $3,200 average price for hitters at Coors Field in what I think is going to be a good opportunity for hitting. Kind of appealing. And I don't think that's going to be the most owned stack in the world. Coors Field game, very questionable pitching. It's bats across the board. And that's your slate, gang. There's the pitching board. Go through it one more time. I think the cut line, the realistic cut line for me is probably Yadiel Rodriguez, and that's really only on DraftKings. I agree with Mamba that you could probably roll some Alec Marsh. For the 7,000, if you need the discount on DK, maybe I can get there. I just don't like the current form that we've seen early this season. I don't like the power that he gave up. I don't like the power that I'm seeing on the Toronto side. So, like, matchup-wise, I'm way more with Toronto there. But since he's one of the few guys in that price range, and if you're desperate to go to cheap pitching on DK at 7,000, then maybe you can get there with Marsh. Boyle is a tougher ask from the bargain bin at 62. I think nothing of Arrighetti at 65. Even though those guys project out higher, those are difficult spots. Boyle, maybe a little bit of strikeout upside, but too many walks, limits power, but the Yankees have power. Don't love that spot. Nothing at Coors down the bottom. I don't like Taillon against the Astros. I don't like Sixto against the Braves, and Coors Field again down there. So really we're dealing with the top. Joe Ryan, dynamite opportunity for him against the White Sox. I like Clark Schmidt for fair pricing against the Athletics in Yankee Stadium. Crochet against the heavy strikeout Minnesota team. We'll see what the home runs look like against Crochet. Wasn't good in the last one. Been a little up and down in terms of earned runs, but everything else is really in line. The expected numbers are really in line. So I like Crochet to continue his success overall, and I like the pricing, how he stacks up against the other top guys on the slate. Ronaldo, great spot at against Miami, especially on DraftKings for only 92. That's pretty killer. Bryce Miller, tough spot against Texas. Fairly priced at 94 on DK. A little bit expensive for the matchup on FanDuel, but that's going to keep the ownership low like we talked about. So I like that. And then Gray, weird, potentially can succeed. 7,500, 8,300. The price is perfectly fine. He's got strikeout upside. He's been finding more strikeouts than usual. I just hate the fact that he pitched more than an inning. He faced 5 hitters just 4 days ago. Drives me nuts. And then Jadiel, I just don't think we're getting the 6th inning on FanDuel, but on DraftKings for the money, he's on the board at 8,000. One last look at the home run board. Top stacks and everything's up on the site. By the way, I think everybody knows the top stacks go up once and don't get an update through the day. It's just too much to sit there and update those tables and the little graphic that I put in every day. So consider any changes as you evaluate the top stacks, but most of it's pretty consistent regardless of what happens. Baseball is a very directional game, so minor changes in lineups don't have gigantic impacts, but always pay attention to that. But top of the board, Jordan Alvarez in that matchup against Taillon. Almost took Alvarez, almost took Tucker, but then I decided to settle for little Jose Altuve. Just below the magic number. Altuve was the home run pick of the day, but I love all 3 of those Astros. I like that stack. I like Jainer Diaz as a sneaky catcher option for 2,900 on FanDuel. Like I said, just consider him the first baseman on that team. We must have that lineup by now, right? It is Singleton in there. All right, so we've got Altuve, Bregman. Bregman hitting second is kind of interesting. Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez, Tucker, Diaz, Pena, Singleton, Caratini, Myers. Interesting move, moving Bregman up to second, having the 2 lefties back-to-back ahead of Diaz. I actually like that a lot. I think you can get to a good little 4-man with Alvarez, Tucker, Diaz, and Pena through the middle of the lineup, but I obviously don't want to leave Altuve out of the equation too many times. For me, it's still Altuve, Alvarez, Tucker, and probably Diaz, and I would just consider Diaz the first baseman. But now they do have a cheap John Singleton in there, so you get a little bit of additional power potential out of Singleton. Not that he's been good. Let's just take it from the top. I'm just going to plug in John Singleton. So he's 2,100 on FanDuel, 2,500 on DraftKings, 229, 308, 286 start to the season over 39 plate appearances with no power so far, .057 ISO and an 80 WRC plus. Hasn't really put bat on ball effectively. 42% hard hit rate in a small sample last year. Power from the minor leagues over the course of his odyssey throughout professional baseball. Weird track record if you want to look into it. We're not going to go through the whole thing now. But sticking him in there, it's probably better right now than Jose Abreu. Gets you an additional lefty bat. I would still just consider Jainer Diaz as their first baseman when I'm building FanDuel lineups. And that's it. That's all I have to say about that. Going back to the board there, power obviously for Tatis, and we saw the explosive power uptick for San Diego if that is the reliever that comes in. Remember, if you hear the name Anthony Molina coming in for the Rockies out of the bullpen, that should be a killer spot for some Padres power. I like Olsen, Acuna, obviously, Riley right there. A lot of Braves power on the board. Good amount of Astros power on the board. And then the Blue Jays. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 Blue Jays at 9 or higher in the home run model. That's appealing against Mr. Marsh. With that in mind, guys, let me go get these updates in. It's 5:30. These will be updated in the next 5-10 minutes. And then basketball projections are up on the site. I'll have time. It's only 2 games tonight for basketball, so any changes I'll update, but I don't think we've got any pending. But basketball projections have been rolling pretty well with these, kind of predictable rotations and everything. It's nice to be back to a little bit more sanity in basketball. But keep an eye on baseball. Good luck out there tonight, gang. Somebody go win something tonight. Let's knock one down midway through the week here. Good luck to you too, Monty. I appreciate it, pal. Appreciate all you guys. Absolutely rock hanging out with me every day. Hit the likes, the subscribes, follow the @rotoscouts Twitter handle. Check out our pals over at acemine.io for your sim needs. Promo code rotoscouts, all caps, gets you 20% off your first month over there. Your first 3 days are always free over there. And don't forget to vote for Emmy Russell in American Idol. See you, gang.